Hey guys, it's your girl Boonie, and you're listening to episode 156 of the Boonie Breakdown podcast, your source for all things responsible and ratchet. All right, welcome to this week's episode, guys. It's been a while since this guest has been on the podcast, but I am excited to welcome back our favorite astrologer, the official astrologer of the Boonie Breakdown podcast, Mecca Woods. If you are new here, Mecca has done several episodes for us, but she is an astro coach, okay? And you've seen her in Bustle, Essence, PopSugar. She was on TLC as a host. Like, sis has receipts. But in this episode, we kind of rehab on her predictions, and I'm doing air quotes on predictions, on the year that was 2020. We talk about Sag season because we're birthday twins. And then we also talk about her forecast for 2021. All right. I know people were excited about the new year because this year has been trying and challenging. Okay. And for first, I don't think Mecca and I ever got ratchet. So we tip our toes over into the ratchet side and we talk about the best signs that we had sexual encounters with. So you don't want to miss this conversation. So stick around for it. All right. Let's hop into pick of the week. This might be the first time that I am awarding pick of the week to a ton of people, okay? As you all know, we have a new president here in America. We have President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, which is exciting. It's such a relief, right? But let's go. Here are my pick of the weeks based off of that news. Number one, Negrodamus himself, our favorite responsible BFF, KG, who said it was going to be a blowout. Biden won the electoral vote by a lot. He won the popular vote by a lot. So Negrodamus was right yet again. So shout out to KG. Another pick of the week. All the people who made the bomb memes, you guys were amazing. It was some anxiety as we had to wait a couple days before we had a winner declare, which was kind of like a first, I think, in modern times. For most of us, we're so used to a winner being declared election night that having to wait days was just such a new experience. So shout out to all the people who made the great memes, especially people who took the video clips, the Sister Act 2 clip, that Avengers clip, like the creativity never ceases to amaze me. And shout out lastly, and I'm going to make it personal, to the Ratcheteers in Detroit, to the Ratcheteers in Philly, and to the Ratcheteers in Atlanta. Y'all came through with them votes to help us flip a few states out there and get this done. So again, shout out to everybody. We made it through this week, hopefully on to better times. All right. And housekeeping. I really want, and it's been years and I still ain't done it, but I really kind of want to get, but that requires more editing and that's probably why I don't do it. But I would like some sound effects. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe we'll try for season 9. Anywho, housekeeping, feedback from episode 155, therapy, church, and sex with the problematic fave, Brian. So many of you said thank you. This was just the laugh we needed for this week, which I would agree. Someone said, you know what? Therapy seems like it might work on Brian. I'm staying hopeful. And so I am with you guys that I am going to stay hopeful that therapy will work on our problematic fave. All right. And also this week, I was a guest over on the Hear Ye podcast. Super dope episode with Tan and B. And I told them already, I'm totally going to steal this idea. They did like a virtual tour and they did 7 stops on different podcasts. And so I was their last stop for their tour in Baltimore. I thought it was such a cute idea. I told them I'm stealing it. So if you want to check me out on that episode, the link is in the show notes and on the booniebreakdown.com. It's in my Instagram bio link. So you have many opportunities to check it out. But it was so funny because I felt so old because they wanted me to talk about people. And I'm like, who are these people? I don't know. But I had to Google. But I think it still turned out to be a really fun episode. All right. And lastly, Boonies Black Friday shopping guide. This year's guide dropped already. I wanted to be early to give small business owners space and grace, especially if the U.S. Postal Service does not rectify some of their issues that they've been having with delivery. I did want to give them an opportunity for everyone to start their shopping early. So this is the 5th annual Boonies Black Friday shopping guide. It features over 55 Black-owned businesses, help you find the perfect gift, maybe for you, if you want to treat yourself, or as you're doing your holiday shopping as we move into this season. So again, that link is over in the show notes. It is also on the booniebreakdown.com. But if you just want to go to it now, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/2020 Boonie Black. And you can just also head on over to the booniebreakdown.com. It's the fastest way to get to it. And you guys know my weekly appeal for reviews. You guys have been killing it with the 5 stars over in the Purple app on Apple Podcasts. If you're new here and you're like, what are you talking about, Boonie? It's a great way for me to get feedback from you guys, and you guys can let everyone else know how much you enjoy the Boonie Breakdown. So if you listen on any Apple device, iPad, iPod, iPhone, MacBooks, you can open that Purple Podcast app, search for the Boonie Breakdown, select the Boonie Breakdown, scroll down where it says tap to rate, hit those 5 stars, and you're done. Want to go the extra mile? You could type some words, and I love you for it. So we always are in the market for more 5-star reviews. We ran a campaign to get to 100. We did it. I might run another one just because ask not, want not. All right. And when sharing this episode, I love it when you guys put it in your Insta stories or you tweet us about it. So please continue to do that. Be sure to use the hashtag The Boonie Breakdown and the hashtag PodIn. And still not following us, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Boonie Breakdown. On Twitter, just at Boonie Breakdown. I love interacting with you guys. We have a good time, especially over on Instagram. So be sure to follow us there at the Boonie Breakdown. So that is it for me. And let's get ready to break it down. All right, guys, it's your girl Boonie, and I'm excited because we have back with us our favorite astrologer here. So, hey, Mecca.
Hey, y'all.
I just realized it had been like a year since you've been on. That's like the longest you've gone.
You know, it's wow. I can't even believe that but I can also believe it. You know, like time has no concept to me at this point anymore.
Right?
You know, like between looking at charts and looking at dates, going back and forth, and then, you know, just the whole quarantine and everything. I don't know what day it is anymore.
Yeah, it is so hard. Like, unless it's some type of marker, like, of what's going on. You're right. I'm like, what day is it?
Right. Yeah.
I have no idea. So like today I knew because I'm like, oh, this popped up on my calendar. You have to record a podcast tonight.
Right. Yeah. Like if I don't write things down, it's gone.
Oh, absolutely. So you're my birthday twin, my Sag sister, and Sag season is almost here.
I know. This is a really big Sag season, to be honest.
Oh, why? Yeah. Tell us more.
So this year we get eclipses for our birthday, and eclipses are really super, super powerful. New moons and full moons that tend to like coincide with big changes. So during the time of an eclipse, it's not uncommon to like get like a big promotion or to get married or to have a baby or to relocate. So there's a lot of, so like for the Geminis, Sagittarius, Pisces and Virgos are going to be feeling these eclipses the most. And if you have those signs strong in your chart, like Virgo moon, Pisces rising, you know, et cetera, like those are the 4 signs that are going to feel these eclipses. I mean, everyone will, but because it's happening in Gemini and Sagittarius, we are going to get most of the action.
So you just said Gemini, Pisces, Virgo, and Sags.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I'm gonna be hit hard.
So you know, for Sagittarius, like right now, I would say like with the Gemini eclipses is going to be landing in our partnership zone. So relationships over the next, I would say usually, well, an eclipse cycle usually runs for about 18 months. So the first one that we had in Sagittarius was back in June.
Okay.
June 5th. The next one we have is November 30th. That's in Gemini. And then December 14th on our birthday.
On our birthday.
Yes.
Okay, because I am definitely a Sag Sun, Virgo moon.
Yes. So you're definitely going to be feeling the energy of this eclipse very strongly. So like for Sagittarius in general, this Gemini eclipse on November 30th is landing in our partnership zone. And then the Sagittarius eclipses that are coming through, because there'll be more next year. So like in May, June, December of next year, there'll be more Gemini Sag eclipses. So our first house, which is the house of me, right? How you like your self-image, you know, how people see you, how you approach the world and interact with the world around you. That is undergoing a big change, right? So some Sagittarius might decide like, hey, you know, I don't feel as healthy as I would like to. Let me start doing things where I can start taking better care of myself. You know?
Oh shit! I just said that. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. So this could come along. So these Sagittarius eclipses for us could come along with like some big lifestyle changes that help us to, you know, feel better in our bodies, you know, look better and all of that on the inside and out. At the same time, because our partnership zone is getting activated too by these eclipses, some Sagittarius could find themselves, you know, leaving a partnership if that partnership has run its course and it's like, you know, I'm ready to, you know, go. But because most Sagittarians, we don't like to give up our freedom, you know, when it comes to partnership, you know, like.
Yeah, I'm listening on that part too. Like,
what? Because a lot of us don't, you know, we're, you know, we can be commitment phobic. These Gemini eclipses are definitely going to challenge us, you know, to get over that commitment phobia, whether it is a romantic partnership, whether it is with, you know, like business partnerships or relationships, like all relationships that are significant are going to be put under the microscope under these Gemini eclipses. And it's really going to force us to kind of like look at like the people that we need to keep, you know, or where we need to be more open-hearted. Or even some cases where we need to be more selective. Because like even with Sagittarius, like even though we have like that commitment phobia at times, we can also be very big-hearted, you know, and very like, oh, I'll just, you know, jumping into like new relationships without giving it a whole lot of thought. And that's, you know, that's part of what it is to be like a Sag, right? It's like,
yeah,
you know, adventure and, you know, excitement and, you know, what's next, what's coming, you know, but sometimes we can have a hard time with like opening up and you know, taking people for a ride with us that really shouldn't be on, you know, in the car, you know, or you know, on the trip, I should say. And so these eclipses are going to be asking us to be a little bit more selective. I think this year in general has been asking everybody in general has to be more selective about relationships across the board.
Yeah, I remember you were, so 2 things first. For people who this might be your first introduction to Mecca, she's been on the podcast before, as I've said. So if you want to go back, you can listen to episode 5, 40, 73, and 119. Okay. So because I don't want people who are sitting here like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay. Because we do kind of go below the surface of astrology, not just like, you know, your sun sign. So if you're listening, because I knew this before Mecca, but she's reinforced this several times. You're like, how do I know my moon? How do I find out these things? So where can they go, just very briefly, to get their chart?
Right. So you can download an app called Time Passages, which is really great for like learning what your birth chart looks like and figuring out like where your sun and your moon, your rising and all of that is. There's a website called astro.com that you can also go to. There's another app called Sanctuary. The only app that I tell people that I don't really suggest is CoStar, because sometimes with CoStar, the calculations are off, and
Okay.
sometimes people will get a wrong moon sign, or like sometimes their chart will be off. So Time Passages, astro.com, Sanctuary, um and then there's another one called astro-charts.com. So those places are where you can go and get your chart for free.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and it's funny because I already knew my chart, so I knew CoStar was right. But CoStar is like it's designed well, I feel like. So it's why a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
In terms of the aesthetic, I'll say that.
I think for people who are not I guess astrology heads like I am, I think the aesthetic is appealing, because when you look at a chart the way that we look at them, which is the big wheel, and it has like all these lines and things like that, people get very overwhelmed. So I think CoStar does kind of like, to some degree, make it a little bit more accessible, but it also kind of takes away some of the key elements of looking at a chart that people do need to learn. So
Gotcha.
I don't know, I'm kind of a purist.
Astrology. That's fair.
Purist.
It's your shit. I get it, right?
Oh man.
So I will say this: in the last episode you were here on, that was episode 119, and we were talking about a conversation for prepping for 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What a year this has been. And I feel like what you said, and I'm not, I hate using like true, untrue, like you're not a psychic, right? Like,
right.
But it was very good advice to prep people for the year that this has been. And you said it was going to be struggles, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm going to ask you now, what is 2021 looking like in the stars?
So if 2020 showed us what is broken and what needs to change, irrevocably, 2021 is where we actually start to need to like actually doing the work to implement the changes that need to be made. So 2021 this is, I won't say that it's going to be bells and like unicorns and things of that nature, because there still is a lot of work to do from where we are right now. And I think it's important for folks not to lose hope. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for me as an astrologer, in terms of like trying to translate all of this like complex stuff, and kind of like bad news, to people, so that people don't lose hope and get frustrated, because everybody's like, when is this going to be over? When are we going to, when are we going to be able to like, get back to our lives? And the thing is that we're not going back to the lives that we know, like.
And that's a key point, because I wanted, like, the quote you said in that episode was, 2020 is a year where we're all going to redefine what success means to us. And we were talking about like legacy. And I do feel like that is true, because early in the year with the pandemic, life as we knew it flipped upside down. People's livelihoods were changed. People who were business owners had to pivot. That was the word of the year. How can I keep this money flowing? How can I keep doing things? And I think it make people realize like success doesn't have to always look the way we've been told it's gonna look.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that I've found that people really struggled with over the year, outside of just like the anxiety around pandemic and, losing loved ones and things of that nature, I think the thing that people really struggled with was the being still. Not having a whole bunch of stuff to do, not being in the space of being like, hyper productive and, having all this stuff going on and going out. And, like people really, really struggled with that sense of like chill. You know, take a moment,
Yeah.
take a seat. You know, like now's not a time for doing and doing and doing. And it was really interesting to see like how much people really struggled with that, even down to the idea of like, you know, career, you know, because a lot of people of course got laid off unfortunately. And
Yeah.
you know, people like you said had to like figure out like, you know, entrepreneurs like, you know, how am I going to be able to make money, and what in what ways do I need to change my business model, you know, in order for me to be able to stay afloat. And I think with that in itself, people's kind of being able to see like, you know, it wasn't really so bad to like have a career that you hated like be taken from you, you know.
Mm.
Granted, like, you know, I'm not saying that lightly, because I know like, you know, if you lose a paycheck, if you lose income, like that's stress, you know, bills need to be paid, mouths need to be fed. So it's not an easy, you know, like I don't say this like with like sort of like a cavalier like, oh well, attitude. But on some levels, you know, the work that people lost, oh, the companies that crumbled, in some ways like it was kind of necessary for them to do that, because now it opens up a path for people to actually pursue a path that they might actually really want to go in, you know, that they couldn't before. And then, you know, with some of these companies, especially now, since a lot of people are being like taken to task, you know, for having like a faith, you know, for like how can I put it, like presenting your company as one way, but then when you see peel back the curtain, you realize like they're actually like a shitty company. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like there's been a lot of those stories like over this past year too, which I think is also great, because again, like everything, all these things that are happening now and that have been happening over the past several months, everything's interconnected. So you can't just have like one industry that's falling apart, or like one part of the country or one part of the world is falling apart, without recognizing that everything, you know, is interconnected, and everything needs to change. So
Yes.
where we are right now is a really, you know, it's scary, you know, it's scary, it's stressful. Like I said, you know, before we started recording, I was saying like, you know, if you're Black or indigenous in this country, I feel like this should be like, we should just take all the rest of the 2020
We
off,
do. I
you
said
know.
this. I said this to my friends where I was just like, "Oh my god, I feel like everyone Black needs to take 30 days off. Like the whole month of December. That's it. Like
Right.
I'm tired. We don't need to do anything else for this country."
Listen, you know, and the fact that, you know, they call us every time they need votes for something, like,
Mm.
you know, I'm the fact that people are still functioning, you know, and still able to laugh and find joy and do anything, you know, just speaks to the power of what it means to be Black in America. And
Yeah.
you know, my thing right now is like, now that we know what needs to be done, and now that white America, um for the ones, and I mean more so for the ones that uh all do want to see some change, but you know, they took a long time to get on board because they thought that we were making shit up, you know, like those whites, you know,
for centuries
who are
like,
like
oh,
late to the party, which,
yeah.
you know, sometimes I go back and forth with being really angry and frustrated with them, to like, all right, come on, let's go, let's just get this work done. But it's just really funny to kind of see like, now they're like, oh, you
You
guys were
were
right
telling
all
the truth. You weren't lying. It wasn't figments of our imagination.
right,
Like it is,
right,
and it's actually wild and like you said, a little insulting to watch, because it's like, for real,
right,
like for
right.
real. And it really took a pandemic for everything to pause, for this to get the attention of people who've been denying it and ignoring it for forever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is
And
absolutely
I
wild.
would say, just in terms of like going into 2021, like, you know, that is going to be really the biggest theme for 2021, is recognizing like there can no longer be the attitude of, I'm just looking out for myself. You know, there can no longer be the attitude of, oh, it's not my problem, oh, you know, let, you know, the other, like, let them figure it out. Like, there's no more of that anymore. um Going forward, as we go into December, when Saturn, the planet of work and responsibility, and Jupiter, the planet of growth and abundance, both move into Aquarius, which is the sign that has to do with community.
Mm.
When they get there in December, because they're going to be there all of 2021, the focus is going to be on community and rallying with your neighbors and your friends and people, because it's going to be the strength in numbers. Like if we're going to get the changes done and the things that need to happen, it really is going to be about the strength in numbers and not just like the whole like solo effort and I'm just looking out for
For
me and
mine,
all
yeah.
of that shit. Like that's a wrap.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting because I feel like, is that going to be a difficult task for people given some of the things that have um, happened, transpired this year, right? Where you're like, I've kind of retreated into a shell a little bit. So for the people who might have taken that course of action to then try to shift to rely on community and focus on community, yeah, that I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think that there will be, work in that regard and effort, that needs to be put forth. But that's also the Jupiter story too, because Jupiter is about learning, like pushing ourselves beyond like our limits or like what we know, as a means
Yeah.
of like enriching ourselves. And that's so that's what we as Sagittarius do, because Jupiter is our ruling planet, and that's what we do all the time. We're constantly like putting ourselves out there and putting ourselves in new situations and searching and learning and picking up stuff, and like that's how we grow, and we're able to share that wisdom with other people. And so when we talk about this Jupiter and Aquarius story, a lot of it is going to be like, growth through the community and learning that it's not just about, the me, but it's about the we, because
Yeah.
both essentially go hand in hand.
And just because people always are afraid of it, and we always kind of drop this on here as you're planning for 2021. I mean, as much as you can these days, right?
Right.
Mercury goes retrograde 3 times in 2021. I already looked it up because I was trying to think ahead, like, okay, if we are able to safely gather and I can do some live shows, I was trying to block out the dates that I shouldn't do. So that is why I know that, ladies and gentlemen, because I was trying to be forward thinking. But as if you're new to the astrology space, and as Mecca has told us over the years, like, don't be afraid of Mercury retrograde. Just plan
Yeah.
for it. Just plan
Yeah.
for it. So
I will say that the good news, is that we won't have a whole, gamut of planets retrograde next year, like the way that we did this year. Because this year,
oh
everybody
my
was
God, it was like
retrograde.
6 or 7 at the same time at one
Right,
point. It
right,
felt like.
right. Like Venus was retrograde at the start of the year. And I believe that was like from April to June. Then Mars started retrograde in September, and we're finishing it on November 13th. And then in between that, all the other planets, including Mercury, were also retrograde. So retrogrades, if anyone doesn't know, is basically meaning, retrospect, looking backwards or moving backwards. So anytime planets are retrograde, it's a time when we are being really pushed to slow down and like
Mm-hmm.
reassess or reevaluate, redo things, reconnecting with people, which is probably why a lot of people were hearing from their exes, all this year, and people, and, I guess some of it was also pandemic related because, people were like, oh shit,
Yeah. Like, I gotta
you
reach out to what I
know,
know.
right, right. Trying to like, extend those olive branches. But at the same time, the retrograde planets also bring back people from the past. So that's also why things have been moving very, very slow, and why it's been seeming like you take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Like it's just been very stop start all this year. So next year, we luckily won't have all of those retrogrades the way that we did this year, which um should mean that we should have some level of like forward momentum.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to change gears a little bit. I feel like
Mhm.
we've already been responsible for this episode, so let's get a little ratchet.
Okay.
So, my listeners, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that over the last couple of weeks, I've been joking a lot about how terrible people Gemini men and Sagittarius men are. Mecca is not new to this. I have told her many times how I feel about Gemini men. And I threw in Sagittarius men because I think I had made the connection that like Jay-Z was a Sagittarius and what he did to Beyonce, you know, Offset is a Sagittarius and what he did to so it was like
he's also our birthday twin.
he is our birthday twin.
Jesus Christ.
So it was just like I noticed this string of Sagittarius men with these famous women, and I'm like,
I feel like Sag men give Sag such a bad rap.
They do. I feel like
when people talk about like, oh, I fucking hate Sages.
They're like, talking about the men. Yes. And that's why I give grace to Gemini women, because when I'm saying Geminis are trash, I always am talking about the men. So I do feel like that is why people talk bad about Sagittariuses. And it is the men's fault. I completely blame them. But I do know it's the fun side. It's lighthearted, but at the same time, you don't want to use zodiac signs to stereotype people, unless they're Gemini men. But you don't want to do it. And so I saw this meme and I saved it because I was like, I gotta ask Mecca when she comes on. It was like, dating them isn't for the weak. And this was the list: June Geminis, November Scorpios, Capricorn men, Aquarius men, Pisces men, Taurus women, Sagittarius, Leos, and Aries. And I'm like, well, damn, y'all just named a whole motherfucking zodiac sign, first of all.
Right.
But I felt in there were a few that were truthful. Do you have thoughts?
Wait, are Libras on there?
They did not have Libras on there.
Oh, see, now I'm suspect about that list because Libras should be like number 2 on there. No. Sorry, Libras. I love y'all, but the men, I'm sorry, really drive me crazy. I don't know. That's a good question. June Geminis.
I just feel like it don't matter. June, May, whatever. Geminis. I will forever die on that hill.
Well, you know why Geminis make you crazy, because they hit your moon all wrong. That Virgo moon, and Gemini don't vibe very well. They don't. Yeah, I can see why they make you crazy, because your Virgo moon is trying to make sense of their madness. Like, they have a method to their madness, but the Virgo in you is like, this is
what are you doing?
Right. This is this is irresponsible and or it's just nonsensical. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I get it. I don't know. November Scorpios. Well, if we talk about November Scorpios, they would fall on the Sag side of things. So you would have a Sag Scorpio blend. I mean, that could get real dotty.
While we're talking about Scorpios, here's the thing. I also feel like the stereotype of Scorpios is that they're these super hypersexual, the best sex in the zodiac, and I don't think that's fair.
No, here's the thing. They do get that, but I've had Scorpios before who are very like trash in bed. Very, very trash, and who should not be Scorpio and actually should give up the Scorpio title. Honestly.
Give it up.
But I will tell you, some of the best signs that I've had before in sex, Aries.
Okay.
Leo.
Oh yes.
So basically the fellow fire signs.
Yeah, I will co-sign Leo. I've not done an Aries.
No, oh, you should.
I will put it on my list.
I'm like, they're fun.
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
I'm like, you should get on that.
But I will co-sign Leo.
Let's see. Pisces has been pretty good.
Okay.
To me. Libra.
I was gonna say, I know you talked about them bad earlier, but I will give 2 thumbs up to Libras as well.
Yeah, no, they when it comes to sex, I'll say that they do actually, like, they bring it, like, because the thing is that they want to make sure that you're having a good time too.
Yeah,
they're not selfish lovers. So I appreciate them. I'm trying to think who else.
You said Aries, Leo, Libra so far.
Well, I know you hate them.
Oh, Gemini, you're gonna say it. I can't even. Oh,
but here's okay. No,
Mecca.
Wait. I'll say Gemini. they give good sex. They give good sexting and like video.
Well, you know what? I will actually say that because I have gone down that digital rabbit hole with a Gemini man. But I can't get past it because then he pisses me the fuck off and I'm just like, oh, I cannot do anything with you in real life. So yeah, but you're right. The sexting, the videos, the creativity with their they just don't send dick pics. It's like videos. It's very, I will give them thumbs up for that.
Yeah.
Yes. But then they get on my nerves.
What about the earth signs? Have you had a Capricorn?
So I'm about to say mine. I will say definitely Leo men. I will give it to Libra. Aquarius.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. And I am okay. So for the earth signs, I'm about to talk a little shit.
All right, go.
Taurus was a no for me. No.
Was Taurus lazy?
So I think it was just very robotic. It was just okay.
Yeah,
and then
they can kind of get stuck in that comfort zone.
Yeah, I think they just had their. But I am dabbling in the Capricorn field right now.
Tell me how that's going.
My word. I was just very shocked because sometimes our Sagittarius fire can scorch earth. I feel like that is definitely the case with the Taurus situation. Like I bust up in the room, my passion, my fire, it scorched the whole thing. This Capricorn situation, I came in ready to like light the room on fire, but the grounding of his earth sign was just like, chill out. I got this.
I love Caps.
Yeah,
I do. They have very like big, zaddy vibes.
Oh, I think that's the thing. You just said it. Like, it's a motherfucking manly ass man. Like, I just was not prepared for that situation.
Yeah. It's funny with earth signs is that a lot of people peg earth signs as being like boring, specifically Capricorn, because like Caps, they're born very late in the year, and like there's kind of this energy, like the later that you're born in the year, the more mature. And that's not to say that like you don't have like immature like Caps and Sagittarius and Aquarians or whatever running around. But there's this idea that the later that you're born in the year, there's a sense of like, kind of been there, done that in some regard. And so Capricorns, have very like they're how can I put it? They're like Benjamin Button. They're born with really old souls, and they're kind of like little like old people. But like the older they get, the younger they get. It's really interesting to see, especially like with Cap men, like. And you can even see it with the women too. Like I've been noticing that with like Mary J. Blige, because she's a Capricorn, and you see like her photos and like her pictures, like she's like aging backwards, right?
Yeah, true. Okay, yeah. I am pleasantly surprised by the Capricorn situation. Yeah. I think I was a little hesitant because of my situation with the Tauruses, but yeah, Capricorn.
Yeah, Cap, and your Earth can be very lusty.
It is
because it's all the physical, the senses and because the body and all of that.
Yeah, that was the thing I felt like I experienced with the Aquarius. Like it was the fire and the air. It just made a bigger fire. Like it just. So I wasn't expecting that from a Capricorn, but it is a very intense situation.
I love it.
Yeah, I am, I'll proudly do Boonie approved on Capricorn. Boonie approved.
Cap. I love
So
it.
I look, I have a question,
Yes.
and I know you're gonna love this one. Circling back. A listener asked, they submitted this question via Instagram, and it says, why do you have to treat Gemini men like shit for them to love you back?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. Here's the thing with Geminis is that they like to push the envelope. You know what I mean? Like they like to see how much they can kind of get away with. They almost, in a way, like they're like mischievous children. And so I usually find that the people who can keep up with Geminis are either also kind of like have that mischievous sort of energy naturally.
Okay.
Or it's a situation where, yeah, if you do kind of like go hot and cold on them, or like you said, like treat them like shit, and it's kind of like give them some like hard limits, or like some hard no's, like it does kind of whip them into shape to some degree. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope that helps you, sis, because I had nothing for you. But yeah, I think it's always funny because you mentioned charts and how all of the placements and things play a part of the totality of you, right? So even though everyone focuses on the sun sign because it's easy to say I'm a Sagittarius, that it's like how Mecca's been pointing out, like, oh, because I have Virgo moon, that's why I might clash so much with Gemini men. So yeah, I really advise you all to pull up your chart and just save it as a favorite picture on your phone. Because that's where mine was for the longest time until I just memorized. Like, then I knew everything by heart. Like, I had it saved as a favorite in my phone.
Yeah, the more you look at your chart, the more comfortable you get with it, and you can kind of like rattle it off eventually.
Yeah, totally. All right, our next listener question. I think we kind of dabbled in this a little bit. Why don't Sagittarius men grow up?
Ooh. Well, here's the thing. The thing with Sag men is that if you, how can I put it? Life is an adventure when we talk about like, that Sag energy. And so Sages by nature are just always like up for the next adventure, always up for like the next big thing. And if you're someone who is a little bit more grounded and doesn't really care for a lot of that, like, coming and going and, now I'm here, now you're not, like, like that kind of stuff, it will make it seem like they're immature. And I can say, like, the best way, like, if you are trying to make it work with a Sag man, the best way that you can is by being open to the new things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, like, just let him, like, run roughshod over you, or that you can't have, like, your limits or your hard nose or your boundaries. But it does mean that, like, you have to be, kind of like open to trying new things, or have a little adventure, a little spark, a fire within you. Otherwise, like, we can get really bored, and that's when we start checking out and going and looking at, other pastures, grazing in somebody else's pasture. But yeah, we all kind of have like a little bit of a Pollyanna kind of syndrome, where we are just really like inspired and, like, oh wow, look, we love the idea of like learning and traveling and just learning and seeing as much as we possibly can.
Yes,
and we always approach it from this place of like, wow, this is just something that is just blowing my socks off. And if you can share those moments with us, we'll love you for life, honestly.
Perfect synopsis.
Yes.
All right, the next one was, I am an earth sun with water, moon, and rising. Why do I love fire signs?
It sounds like you don't have any fire in your chart.
Huh?
If you whatever element you lack in your chart, you tend to gravitate to that, either consciously seeking people out who have that element in their chart, or subconsciously. So for example, in my chart, I'm all fire and all air. I have very, very little water, little to no water in my chart. And from friends to family to people that I date to colleagues, everybody that I draw into my orbit are people who have a heavy amount of water in their chart.
Yeah.
And the same thing. So if you have nothing but earth and water, and I don't know what the rest of your chart, looks like. You could possibly have some fire in there, with maybe like your Venus or your Mars or something. But that sounds like you're gravitating to fire because you don't have any in your chart.
Oh my God, our charts are very similar too. I don't have hardly any water either. Because so people who don't know, so the water signs are Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
Your earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
Air is Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, and then
Mm-hmm.
your fire signs are Aries, Leo, Sagittarius.
Right.
So yeah, I'm the same way. I have a good amount of fire, air, and earth, but I don't have any water.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I have a little sprinkling of earth in my chart too. But yeah, the people, well, it never fails. Like even when I think I'm like, I'm not trying, like they'll, people with strong water in their chart always shows up. So that's pretty much the answer to that. And that also applies to people that press our buttons too. Like when it comes to people who like get under our skin, especially when we talk about like like we just talking about like I hate those signs, like I hate, I can't take Libras, it's usually because there's something in our chart that we either lack or we're not like we haven't integrated that sign, we haven't or learned the lesson of that sign well enough, so we gravitate to these people kind of on a subconscious level in order to learn that lesson.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. It was two more questions.
Mm.
So this one. I am a Cancer woman. I am talking to a Libra man. Are we compatible or not?
Well, I would say, on popular astrology, Cancer Libra is not compatible. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it work. I always shy away from like giving hard no's and yeses when it comes to compatibility because it really depends on the maturity of the people involved. Like as a Cancer, technically Cancer is, and it's sensitive and emotional, and you deal in the realm of feelings, right? Whereas Libra, being an air sign, is more about the rational and the logic. Where I think Cancer and Libra can sort of like overlap or find some level of like understanding is the fact that Cancer is very typically nurturing and family oriented. Libra is partnership oriented.
Okay.
And so when you put those two together, especially, with Cancer and Libra, like they tend to think of other people before themselves. So if they bring that same energy to a partnership, a romantic partnership, it can on some level be a nice match if, they're remembering to kind of like keep each other, like being thoughtful of one another, right? I think though where there will be friction is that Libra might feel that Cancer is too emotional and Cancer might feel that Libra is too cold. So there might need to be some compromise and communication, of course, between the two of you in order to make sure that things run smoothly. But I think where you can learn from each other is that Libra can definitely learn to tap more into the emotional side, and you can learn to also kind of like detach from your emotions from time to time as well.
Got it. And the last listener question.
Yes.
And it's funny because I don't really know anything about this particular one, but
Mm-hmm.
what is the deal with Cancer men? Please explain. Help, Mecca. So, and it's so funny because I've never dealt with a Cancer man, but my mom is a Cancer, and I always have pegged them as very emotional. And I know sometimes my mom says like I hurt her feelings,
Mm-hmm.
with my bluntness and my directness. And so I've always just like, oh my God, Cancers are emotional. But and one of my best friends is a Cancer. But beyond that, I don't really know anything.
I mean, cancers are emotional, but that's just part of the story. The other part of the story is that they're very self-protective. So if you are trying to date one, and they're being kind of closed off with you, sometimes you might need to kind of like back off a bit and kind of let
Okay.
them come to you in their own time, rather than trying to like be too in their face or too available or too like, like they let them cling. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to cancers, and I love my cancer folks, but they're the ones who love being needed, and they
Hmm.
love when you're a bit of a challenge for them, and when they can kind of like be the ones to kind of chase you down a little bit.
Gotcha.
When you're coming on too strong or like trying to like, it just makes them retreat into the shell. So the way that you deal with, and then with cancer men sometimes, and I find that this is also true of like water sign men in general, is that because we live in a society that often frowns upon, and luckily, this is starting to change because of all the talk that we've been talking about in terms of like toxic masculinity and like how it not only harms like, women, and those who are like feminine or children, but it also harms, people that identify as masculine, men as well. And, when we talk about water sign men, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, they typically are not allowed to tap into that feminine side because water is
Mm.
feminine. It's receptive, it's intuitive, it's not like hard and aggressive. It's more considered more feminine energy, and so it's nurturing. It wants to bond really, really strongly, with other people, and
Okay.
of course like lives in the emotional realm. So when men aren't allowed to tap into that feminine side, they become, hyper masculine, and that's when they can kind of like project their feelings or project that feminine side out onto their partners. So you become the hyper emotional one. You become, the quote unquote the crazy and irrational one, because you're trying to like get them to like open up and own their feelings and, talk to you and, all that kind of stuff. So it's also kind of like unfortunately, like a gender role situation too, that when cancer men or water sign men aren't allowed to express that feminine energy, they often project it onto their partners. And that's when things get really tricky, because it's like, no, but you need to own those feelings. You need to like, like you need to have like, that can't be my job to do the emotional work or the emotional labor for you.
Damn, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Like they flip it back on you, and so you feel out of sorts because
Hmm.
they can't be who they are. Oh my
Right,
god.
right. Or they do that thing where they get really silent, and then you're like, just talk to me. Just, tell me what's going on. Blah, 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 like, and you're like losing it when it's their shit. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
you could probably be very calm and like have a conversation or whatever with them, but because they're not willing to own up to the fact that they were hurt by something, like, like, oh wow, that, that really hurt me, or, like how women do, like we're the ones who'll be like, oh man, that shit hurt me, that made me cry, or whatever the case may be, because we're women and we're sort of socialized to be the more emotional ones. But when you and I, and then the reason why I'm laughing is because I've dealt with so many water sign men, because hello, I have no water in my chart. So so I know, like, they when they're not tapped into that feminine energy in a healthy way, they definitely make you own that for them, and it's tough to deal with, because you're like, fuck, am I crazy? Am I losing it? And you're not. It's them needing to own their shit and to speak up and say like, oh, this shit hurt me, or I'm
Yeah.
upset, or whatever the case may be, and being vulnerable instead of like, pulling that toxic male shit.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck that. I can't do that.
Right. And so like, no, and so like for me, because my moon is in Aquarius, and I don't and I already have issues with like my own vulnerability, like, and feeling
Yeah.
my own feelings. I'm not, I end up like running away, because I'm like, I'm not going to fucking own your feelings. Like, I'm not doing that. You do that.
Yeah, I absolutely cannot do that. Wow. Well, that's interesting. Those are our listener questions. So I hope that answered your questions. And if you need a little bit more, then you just need to go ahead and book Miss Mecca for a reading.
Yes.
Yes. So, all right, Mecca, if you can tell everyone where they can find you on the internet, on social media, how they can get a reading, etc.
Sure. You can find me on my website, mylifecreated.com. I'm on Twitter at The Mechanism. I'm on Instagram at One Mechanism. I also have a book out called Astrology for Happiness and Success. I talk about how to get over heartbreak and, dealing with family stuff and self-care tips and all of that. So you can also pick that up if interested.
Yes. The book is one of my favorites. I have a few astrology books. Yeah, I have a few. This is one that I have like circled, highlighted, pages bent back. But the one thing I do love about Mecca's book is that she has daily affirmations in them. And so sometimes when I'm trying to work, like, oh, what do I want to affirm right now? Like, what am I doing? And I'll just open her book. I have those pages bent back for my sign, Sag, and I'll be like, okay, my daily affirmations for love. Okay, which one am I going to focus on? So, yeah, I think it's dope. So if you have not gotten a copy of Mecca's book, please be sure to pick it up. And she has coloring books too.
Oh yes. I have a line of coloring books, one for each of the 12 signs. So make sure you go and grab those. Those are really cool too, like for like decompressing and
yes,
de-stressing from all of the crap going on right now. So
yeah. So thank you so much, Mecca. I can't
you.
believe it had been this long, but it's always
it's always a pleasure.
It's always so fun to have the birthday twin on. So
yay. Thank you.
All right, guys, that is it for another episode of the Boonie Breakdown podcast. I want to thank our guest, Mecca Woods, for coming on and dropping so much dope knowledge. If you want to do more, like I said, book a reading, buy one of her books. And again, I apologize to any Gemini men if I've hurt your feelings, but facts are facts. And if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to listen and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or any app that you listen to your favorites on. Don't forget to leave those reviews too. You might just hear your review in the next episode. Follow us on all social media. Share the episode with those you love, those you don't love, those you fucking hate. I don't make these pretty images for nothing, okay? Have a dope ass week. Stay healthy, safe, and sane. Thank you for listening. And remember, the ratchet in me always honors the ratchet in you. Until next time.